All right, welcome to another episode of Breaking Business Barriers. This is your host, Brent Duhaime. I'm joined by someone who's been on this show before. I think we're on episode number 62 or 63. I'm losing count underneath the Breaking Business Barrier name. And Jared Ty is joined me. He's a real estate guru. He's been in the business for a long time, if you count both sides of the business, and he'll tell you a little bit about that. That was very timely, given what we're going through here with the economic slowdown, let's call it right now. It's a different piece. Jared went through the recession of 07, 08, and I always say through 09, but that was a different flavor. And before we get started, hey Jared, I just want to thank you, number one, for coming on the show again today, and number two, I want to make sure I thank our sponsor for this particular episode, and that's Open Media Source, great team that helps us distribute these podcasts. But hey, man, why don't you remind our listeners a little bit about you?
Well, thanks for having me, man. I'm a big fan of what you do and your show, so thanks for having me on. As you mentioned, I have a 14-year combined experience between real estate and mortgage. I actually started out as a mortgage loan officer back in 2006, right before everything went down for the recession, to put it simply there. So yeah, I did that for well over a decade, and I've been on the real estate side for a good amount of time now, and enjoy what I do.
Yeah, and that's right. It's a unique perspective because you saw pieces of the business on the lending side, and worked with your referral partners and what have you. But also, you went through a piece of our time in the industry where you never know what product or program that you had because of the secondary markets or the open market, who was going to be buying those loans from lenders like I represent and what have you. So I think what you bring, and that's what I mentioned to you the other day. I'm like, man, I'd love to have you on the show again. Hey, I do apologize. I'm backlit. Sorry about that. Jared, you're always super professional, and at least they can see you a little bit better. But it's the beauty of working from home or having to work from home. And by the way, my bride we share the same office here. So if you hear some clicking going on and what have you, she's pounding away on a keyboard and working. So as we all work through this particular time in history. Hey, Jared, I've got a question for you. So, prior to this, and this came on to us pretty fast, we're at this time, and depending on when people listen to us, but really in March, this started to evolve. Beginning of March, maybe even into that second week of March. So you're working with sellers, you're working with buyers. How's that pipeline, or what's the feel of that pipeline? Are they freaking out? Are they, some going forward, or man, what's happening?
So it's been really interesting. A couple months ago, I was, by the grace of God, I was super, super busy. And, as someone who works in the greater, sales industry, you never want to, turn any business down. But it's ironic because, a couple months ago, I was, trying to find time to be at home, right? Trying to find, breaks and things like that from working. And we took a vacation for spring break. And as we were, already gone, that's when everything started really changing here. And we came back to just a different world as everyone's experienced now. So my first, I would say 2 weeks of, being back and being, everyone being in quarantine, so to speak, I feel like my clients kind of pressed pause, as we kind of all did. And everyone's just kind of under shock, it seems like. But then after a couple of weeks of that, a lot of my particular clients started, very carefully getting busy again with their real estate endeavors, if you will. And so we've, by the grace of God, been able to keep working here, just extremely carefully.
So, all right. So yeah, everyone, I call it the freak out button. I think everyone hit it, not
Right.
only in the industries that you and I both represent, but just about any industry. And it probably we should probably also include, hey, we thank all those people that are out there every single day, whether they're
Right.
working at the grocery store or they're working in the medical business. Those folks that are working construction, they're still doing their thing for the most part in most states, not all, but in most states. And so a big thank you to them. Has between you and your company, are you showing houses different? I mean, we've always been boots on the ground. Our
Right.
business is really handshake to handshake, belly to belly. And what I mean by that, it's a close relationship with, yourself in real estate, my side of the business as a lender, but also the other ones in tow, those other folks that, help put these things together, title companies and what have you. But more specifically, are you showing houses differently, or are you even showing houses? I've been seeing all this stuff about virtual, you know, home tours. What's that all about?
So we're still showing houses, in person, but I would say that the frequency of it has decreased. People are doing video tours. On our listings, we're setting up video tours to where, there's just more information available. So, the buyer who might have wanted to go out and see, 8 homes in one day might now, only go see, 1 or 2 of those homes. And we might spend more time on the front end researching the home before we go out. When I do go out, carry a bottle of hand sanitizer with me, take the shoes off at the door and, clean my hands before and after touching any doorknobs, light switches, things like that. Make sure to stay, 6 feet away from, any clients, and I ask them not to touch, anything while they're in the house. So we're still doing the physical showings. We're just, trying to not do as many of them, and we're trying to be a lot more careful while we're there. We are doing more virtual options. So, we've even had cases where the homeowner will do a 4-way Zoom call to where the homeowner is walking around showing the house to us while the potential buyer is on the call. The listing agent and the buyer's agent, all 4 of us are on the call at one time. So it's that's one silver lining, is it's forced a lot of us to figure out how to use some of these solutions that can make our lives easier even down the road.
Yeah, and it's less invasive, right? People are going to be continuing to sell for whatever particular reason, whatever that happens to be, and then buyers are going to be buying. I mean, how many folks? And this is not we don't need a number here specifically, but a lot of folks are coming off a lease, right?
Right.
They've leased a condo or apartment or maybe a home or whatever the case might be, and they may be up against that lease.
Exactly.
And hopefully they can extend it if they have to, given
Right.
given the circumstances. But people up against dates, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's where the essential piece of it comes to play, is that people need a place to live, and there are a lot of people who were already planning to move. Yeah, we're just trying to be as careful as possible. The crazy thing is, I think about how careful we need to be, even going to a grocery store, things like that. So that's the one nice thing about real estate, is you're not going to a place where, hundreds of people have been. You're going to a place where, everyone who has, been there, it's all on a record, and, it's just very careful work we're doing.
Yeah, very, very good. In terms of, My heart always goes out to, and always has, for the first time home buyer. Do you have some advice to those folks that may be considering buying a home? It'll be their first home. And then I'll do a follow-up, even with anyone that's looking to buy a home. What are you making sure? You talked about diving a little deeper into using different methods of showing that house and doing lookups on it. In terms of advice, do you have any?
Sure. So there's a lot, we can find out before, we even go out to the house. There's a lot of research that we can do on, foundations, roofs, plumbings, things like that, before you even go out. There are still, as you can tell us more about, there's still, fantastic financing options. I have several buyers who are bringing in a very small amount to closing. So, contrary to what, you may read on the headlines or to what they might imply, there are still a lot of great financing options available. And again, there's a lot of research we can do before anyone even, sets foot in a home that they'd like to see.
Yeah, I think, I've done this for a long time, as you know, Jared. I think making sure that potential buyer can walk into a home and show, along with you, that they are pre-approved, and it's not a pre-qualification that's loosely put together, but they have the necessary funds, they have the adequate credit, and all those other things. But I think it's interesting. You talk about making sure that homes or maybe you don't have your inspection done beforehand, but you do some research to make sure, hey, this, good neighborhood, you always do those things, but structurally sound and what have you. So I think
Right.
that's good advice that you bring along. And then I also think if someone's going to sell a home, they want to know that someone's ready to buy, and
Exactly.
they have the ability to buy, whether they're paying cash, which is always a nice thing, or they have a lender behind them with a stamp of approval saying here's what they can do.
Right, right. Yeah, I found it interesting, over time that a lot of reasons that buyers ultimately veto certain homes end up being for reasons things that we could have found out on the front end, before they even go out. Like, I'll always pull up the Google Earth view of a house and, I'll let someone know, hey, did you realize this house backs up to a, convenience store or something like that? And I would say that, a lot of those reasons a lot of those things that they would want to know, if you spend a little more time on the front end, we can find out, before you even go out. And that way, the time that we do spend in the field looking at homes is spent looking at homes that are true contenders.
So what are you learning? I've certainly, we've learned things through, again, you and I have done this for a long time. I can dial it back to 9/11, which was a business disruption, life disruption. And unfortunately people lost their lives, and it was, a different time in our world, of which I remember exactly where I was when it was happening. Then we had the Great Recession, and here we are today. And I always dial back, and I was just on a call earlier, just before you and I got together, and we were talking about the similarities to the Great Recession. What did we learn, and what can we pull out of this? What are you learning right now that maybe you're making notes? We're certainly doing a podcast, so we'll always have that on record. But what are you learning?
I think, something that I'm constantly reminded of is that, people matter, more than business. So, you know, reach out and check in with people, your contacts, even business contacts, things like that. But, don't just chase a deal, make sure that they're doing okay and check in on them. And, business will take care of itself over time.
And I've got a pretty strong opinion about that, so I'm going to go ahead and chime in. How about we've seen some competition that they're called internet providers in our business space.
Mm-hmm.
And without boots on the ground, I mean, I think you just hit, I won't get on my pedestal. I very easily could. And both on the lending side as well as on the real estate side, whether you're showing homes to buyers or providing for sellers. But I think the emphasis here is people do matter. I think you said it really well. And they matter a lot today. And if they matter a lot today, they should matter a lot from 10 years from now.
Right.
We never know what hurdles that we have to overcome. And you dropped me a text, I think it was yesterday, that said, hey, we're blessed. And I think we got to remember that. I think we lead with kindness. You know, as you work with the people that you've been working with, I'm sure they may be a little bit more tense than normal. And whether or not they're quarantined with what I call the little people. As I said, in my household, we have our own bunkers, so to speak. So we got a college kid that she's doing her thing, and everyone's on the internet doing their learning and work, and occasionally gets a little slow, but we work through it. But hey, Jarrett, as we get to wrap up, a little bit of fun. I mean, as you say, you're learning. Hey, whether or not we're selling real estate or providing financing, like in my line of work, what are some of the things that you're doing marketing wise, maybe that you weren't doing 60 days ago? Now you do a lot, and I think you do a great job with the video. I know Laura, your bride, joins you in some of those things, which I just enjoy, and we don't have to get into that. But any marketing tactics that you're doing differently?
Yeah. So, it's just such a delicate, such a sensitive time. So for me, what we're doing, and a lot of people in my office here at Keller Williams McKinney are doing, are just what we call care calls, to where, we're just calling in, checking in, see how people are doing. So, we're not trying to, ask them for business right now or anything like that. We're just trying to make use of the time that we have to just stay in touch with our contacts. I do think, man, I've really enjoyed learning Zoom through all this. I've started doing consultations with new clients through Zoom, which is something I probably should have learned a long time ago. But it's, the next best thing to having somebody, in your office and being able to show them, how your process works and things like that. So what I've done when I've really enjoyed it on buyer consultations, when I have a new buyer, I'll let them participate in the process of setting up a search portal for them. And that's really cool. I could show them the map. I could say, hey, if we look for, homes that have garages, that limits our results from, 30 houses down to 10 houses, things like that I can actually show them. And having that visual is really fun. It helps them be more involved. It helps everybody, get to know each other better, and it just makes business more personable.
And I mean, I think that's big, but just equally huge time saver, not only for your clients, but yourself, and to be able to use something like a Zoom. I know when I started a business, I think I've shared with you, a number of years ago, and almost now 15 years ago, we used, at the time it was Uvu, and it was high def and very similar to Zoom. And we held company calls across, and it was really the first time I started to use something like that. And we probably were using it, and myself, I was probably using it up to a half a dozen times a day. And it was, it was easy to talk to someone on the West Coast or the East Coast or wherever they may be, super efficiently, and we could have a number of folks on it, just like Zoom. But yeah, Zoom's kind of like the thing right now. Well, I wonder what the next thing will be, But hey, Jarrett, what if anything, any lasting thoughts that you'd like to share with folks? I mean, real estate's been around forever. It's not going anywhere. There may be some speed bumps in between, but if someone's considering, first and foremost, let's not forget how people get in touch with you. But any advice out there for either someone who's looking to sell a home, maybe it isn't until August or July, maybe it's something that's a reload that they know that's pending, or looking to buy a home. Any advice for them?
Yeah, I would just say that things have a way of working themselves out. The market right now kind of reminds me of during a holiday break, in the sense that a lot of the people who just wanted to buy or wanted to sell may be waiting, but the people who need to sell their home or need to buy a home, they don't have that luxury of waiting. So it creates, it actually creates solutions kind of naturally. I have a buyer who experienced some difficulty in their process, and the seller ended up being more likely to work with them, because of what's going on here. So it's a deal where, things just kind of work themselves out. But, as long as you're working with a, good professional who's going to shoot you straight, it never hurts to ask those questions and to do that research, before you commit to anything.
I think that's spot on. And as a professional realtor in the business, making sure you have the appropriate protections in place for your buyers and sellers. There's contingencies, and then there's things like this, the unexpected. Who expected this 90 days ago? At least not you or I. Maybe there are scientists that are no doubt far smarter that knew about it. But man, I think you hit the nail on the head. And how do we get a hold of? Well, I know how to get a hold of it. How do people find Buy with Ty?
I appreciate it. I'm pretty easy to find on social media. So just Jared, Jared, Ty, Tye. Or you can search for Buy with Ty, which is my business page. My personal cell is 214-674-9999.
And there you have it. Buy with Ty. He's a pro. Yeah, he'll shoot you straight and do the right thing. Represents a great company, but he is the brand. Jared Ty. On behalf of Breaking Business Barriers, again, want to thank our friends over at Open Media Source. This is your host, Brent Duhaime. Appreciate you hanging out with me today. And with that, JT, see you around the corner. Onward.
Hey, Brent, when are we doing another Zoom happy hour? We'd be happy to provide music again.
I'm still recording, so anyone who would like to do a Zoom happy hour, we can host. I'm joining another one this Friday, but I think we have one coming up a week from Friday. And you can find Brent Duhaime pretty much anywhere. Just it's Brent. You'll see it on. You'll see it on the releases on the podcast. Last name D like David, Uhaime. You can find me pretty much anywhere. I'm out there. But yeah, we do those. How much fun was that, by the way, JT?
It was a blast. We really enjoyed that.
It was, and if you don't know it already, Jared and his wife, and in fact the entire family, super talented as it relates to music. I have a hard time drawing a stick man with a ruler. Between he and Laura, they can pick up and sing some tunes, play some music. It's fun. And again, I think going back to that comment that you made earlier, people are important, and people are really important, and relationships are really king and queen in our business and really in any other business. But again, this is your host, Brent Duhaime, Breaking Business Barriers. Stay safe, be well, and talk soon.